Welcome back to Raja Drives Team Radio. I'm Harvey and I'm here with Kaz, and it's race week. And not only is it race week, it is the month of May. And you kicked off the month of May this weekend in Indianapolis, correct? So before we talk about the racing, let's talk about the racing.
Yeah, thank you for this. This is a little bit of vanity right here, but I'm thrilled to do it. I kicked off my 500 month by running the 500 Festival Mini Marathon, the half marathon in Indianapolis that runs you around the IMS oval. It was a great weekend. I was nursing a torn quad and I achieved my goal. So I'm thrilled about that. And that's all I need to say about the running portion of it. But throughout the entire weekend, before the race, after the race, and even while I was tooting along, just trying to keep my breathing going, I was so struck by how the city turned out for this event. I think it's so cool that Indianapolis as a city is like, all right, we've got this world-class marquee event in the Indy 500 and it will always be here. So let's do something for the city with it beyond that weekend. And essentially they've turned the entire month of May into a series of fundraisers for the city, all associated with the Indy 500. Connor Daly was there at the start line, getting everybody ready to go. It was so cool to see him. Well, I really wish I could have stopped and been like, hey, Connor, let's talk about IndyCar. But I was about to run a 13-mile race, so I didn't really have the time. Running around the track was an absolutely unbelievable experience. And
talk about that.
2.5 miles is, it was. So we came in through the tunnel. Mm-hmm. And then, you come up the hill and you see the IMS museum, and then they kind of dumped us toward the track along the back straight. So we're about halfway through the back straight when we get onto the track, and then you go in turns 3 and 4. And then once you get to the front straight, you run through the pavilion, super iconic and cool. And then they had this really great split situation where if you were really concerned about your time in this half marathon, you stay to the left, keep running. If you have some kind of, affinity for this venue, you can stop and kiss the bricks. We were about 7 miles in at this point, closer to 8, actually, I think. Uh-huh. So bending down to kiss the bricks was probably the hardest part of the whole race.
So that wasn't the finish line?
No, I wish it had been. But
that's interesting.
You start downtown by the convention center, JW Marriott situation, run through the park, out to IMS, around the track. You're about mile 8.5 once you leave the track. So it's the 4.5 miles back downtown, essentially, that finishes you. And that makes sense, ultimately, closing off the entire venue for the full. I mean, having the finish line be there would have caused a lot more logistical issues than I think it would have solved.
How many people,
how does my partner get in? I don't know.
Yeah. How many people ran the event? Do you know?
Okay. I don't. And I do. I have a number in my brain and I don't know where it came from. I think it's a 30,000 person race.
Wow. Yeah.
So, and it felt crowded the whole way.
Okay.
I've run a lot of small races. If
that's not the right number, we will put the right number on the screen.
Yeah, we'll pop it in. We'll just do a quick little insert if I'm wrong. I've run a lot of small races in little towns, and there's always that, you get separated from the pack and then you're running by yourself for a while. That was on a 13.1 mile race. That was never an experience. And look, as cool as everything on track was, and it really was, when I'm coming through the corners and I kind of look to the right and I see the banking and you're turning into the straight, and I'm thinking about Pato Award and Joseph Newgarden fighting each other at turn 4. Everything was super cool, but the best part was the neighborhoods running up to and away from IMS. I swear every single house that was along the track had a little table set up in their yard with, some of them were just partying and playing music and encouraging people. There were a couple of guys who had tequila shots I didn't take one. And for me to turn down a tequila shot is like pretty significant, right? But 8 miles in, nothing sounded worse to me than a tequila shot.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like an energy boost at that point.
I'm like not a true full marathon runner. So if I were that fit, maybe that would have been fun. Or if you're a walker, because they do
Yeah.
happily embrace walkers on this event as well. I If you are a fan of IndyCar and you're a fan of moving your body a little bit, there is a 5K if you're not into super long distances. I can't recommend this enough. I had the best time.
And
I swear, 2.5 miles, I would have told you I was on track for 5 minutes. And I am not that fast.
the who's the charity that the money goes to?
So the 500 festival in general is spread all across the city of Indianapolis. There are educational efforts, environmental efforts, health efforts. The mini marathon specifically is for IU Health.
Oh, great.
Yeah, which
Excellent.
makes a whole lot of sense. And love that I'm supporting the guys who are there for the drivers when they
Right.
crash on track. So
So last weekend was the IU Mini Marathon.
my race.
Yeah. Now we have the first race at IMS, which is the Sonsio Grand Prix at IMS. The history of this race is pretty interesting because the first Grand Prix at Indianapolis Motor Speedway was a Formula One race in
Hmm.
2000, and they built the track for that. And then when Formula One and Indy couldn't come to financial terms because Formula One, um, then
Mm.
they stopped racing road courses there, except for I think it was motorcycle. There were motorcycle racing on the road course for a couple of years, and then they brought the Indy cars in 2014 to run this race. So, pretty interesting history. I was at the first Formula One race there in 1990. I saw Michael Schumacher win that race, so that was pretty cool.
And now you'll
Um,
see Mick Schumacher, but
yeah, we'll
maybe not
see.
win. Maybe not win.
Yeah,
We'll see.
I mean, look, if he's going to show well on a track, this could be a good one for him. It's a track that RLL historically does well.
Hmm.
Um, his father won here, so there's that motivation.
Wouldn't that
And,
be cute?
let's see what happens. But hopefully I'll get a chance to talk to him before the race on Friday and or Saturday.
You could tell him a fun story for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
this race to me, I feel like this is a race that gets slept on a lot. It's, you know, at IMS, it's 2 weeks before 500. It's a week before qualifiers. We know what we're all really looking forward to in Indianapolis in May. But the road courses, it always produces a race that surprises us.
Yeah.
This is a place where Rinus VeeKay got his first win. Like you said, RLL typically does very well here. Now, in the last couple of years, that's been narrowed down a bit. We've seen
Well,
four Chip Ganassi wins in a row at this
yeah,
track.
and while it has been four Chip Ganassi wins in a row, when you look at the top 10 though, it's been pretty interesting in these
Hmm.
races. So, yeah, Alex has won the last three, is he going to win the fourth? I
Maybe.
you know,
Odds are
if
good,
if
but
someone
that
told me
doesn't,
I had to bet on a winner, I'd bet on Alex. But
I always would, though. If
yeah,
I had to bet on a winner any race, I always would bet on Alex. But if
especially on a
I'm
road course.
betting on a race where things might get mixed up, it might be this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's a three-stop race. The
Hmm.
tire requirement is that they only have to use one of each tire. So there will be different team and driver strategies involved in this. So, we'll see what happens. Last year there wasn't a caution flag until the very last lap of the race. So, it's good racing, and it should be an interesting day.
Yeah, and this is one of those races where when you're thinking about strategy, all right, so if we're doing a three-stop race, it's 200 miles. If we're doing a three-stop race, we're looking at something like 50 miles per fuel. if we split it evenly every time. A
Yeah.
set of alternate tires might not be there are a lot of variables that make me think that we're going to look at some different strategies going into this. We're going to have people who want to run two sets of alternates, ditch them, do a long stint on primaries. We know Alex loves the primary tire. He's going to be milking it. Are
Right.
people able to squeeze some juice out of the alt that'll get them up to where Alex is? This could be a fun race for strategy. I hope that's what we look at, because ultimately, while the track is very, very cool and some of the corners are really interesting,
Yeah.
the exit of turn 4 in particular, I've got my
Yeah.
eye
That's
on.
there. That's a lot of fun.
There aren't passing opportunities aren't growing on trees, you know?
No, your passing opportunities are going into turn 1 and then off
Mhm.
the back straight into I believe that's turn 8, um, where you go in there and then into that complex that
Yep.
takes you out into turn 2, and not on the track in turn 2, but sort of on the inside road, and then dumps you out after turn 1 onto the front straight going the wrong way. That always freaks me out. So
Guys, if you're looking for an explainer of what we just talked about, I can't recommend enough. Go to Chip Ganassi's social media and look at Scott Dixon explaining this track to you guys. He'll do it better than we can. Obviously, Scott Dixon has driven every track
a
more
million
times than
times.
anybody, other than the new ones. And even with the new ones, I trust him because he's driven every other track more times
Yeah.
than anybody. So definitely go take a listen to Scott Dixon explaining. But that, yeah, some of the turns are very interesting and require, I, while I don't, last year we didn't see a lot of yellow flags. There aren't a whole lot of passing opportunities. There are a number of opportunities for drivers to make mistakes and run into the gravel. I do think we're going to see a lot of passes that way.
Yeah,
People
there's a
making,
lot of runoff area on this
Mhm.
track. Cars do go into the grass, especially as the tires start to wear a little bit and people push, trying to squeeze that extra lap out, for an overcut or whatever. We'll see. There's going to be some interesting strategies playing out. I know Rahal last year was running second or third and had, their strategy just didn't work out with their tires, and his went away and ended up a little further down in the race.
But with the potential he's been showing and with how good RLL looked at testing at again different setup, but even so, you can't help but feel if Graham did that well last year,
Right. No,
there's
this
something for him to build on here.
he did a press conference yesterday for IndyCar media, and one of the things that he talked about is he doesn't know why, but this is a track where they just do well as a team. And he talked about like 2 or 3 years ago when they were all fairly high up. In terms of qualifying, he said we all had different setups and we did well. So I'm not really sure what it is that makes us go well, but this is a
Something's
good track
working.
for our team. And, considering the momentum they have as a team, I mean, Graham's 10th in the standings, and they seem to be showing better. It really is now up to Mick to start delivering some results. But, we'll see where they end up in this one. They're a team. Maybe they're not going to win, but they could put a driver on the podium.
Yeah. I've got my eye on this race. I've got my eye on Christian Lundgaard.
Mm,
This feels to me like it is his time to put up for McLaren. We've talked a lot about McLaren and what they're doing and not doing, and he had his very close run at Barber.
right.
It was a pit stop away from being a nearly perfect race for him. The IMS road course has been a good track for him in the past. This feels like an opportunity for him and McLaren to step up. I really, I don't
Yeah.
know that they're going to do it, but that's where my eyes are looking early
I
this weekend. I want to see if they can.
I think another driver I'm going to look at this weekend is Will Power. I
Yeah.
I think this is a good track for him. Um, and
I
I
think
think
it's
he really, is ready to show something. He's been close, right?
I think he is too. And I actually want to go beyond that a little bit. I think that Will being on the Andretti team is great for Andretti. This has not typically been a showpiece track for them. Kyle Kirkwood's
No.
average finish here is 10 and a half. It's not great for a guy who's a championship contender at this stage,
Right.
So 10 and a half and a 10th, 11th place finish in a season is fine. He'll get one. It's okay. If it's here, that's fine. But having Will, a guy who understands this track a little bit better on their team, and Marcus Ericsson has talked about this for Andretti, I would think most, is how much having Will on the team has kind of altered their setup ethos a little bit.
Hmm.
It seems like Marcus and Will like driving a similarly set up vehicle.
Interesting.
I think there's perhaps something that that team can learn from him and take away and make this a better track for them. So eyes on Andretti as well. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
And Will for sure, because he's just always fun.
And yeah, and we can run down all the teams, but this has also historically been a pretty good race for Penske.
Yes.
Not the last
I do want to
4
say
years.
before and actually this does relate to Penske. Will's won here 5 times.
Yeah.
With Team Penske.
Exactly.
So it's for both.
And they won with Simon Pagenaud, and
they've
won
with
Joseph.
Yeah.
So it's not like this is a bad track for Penske either. So, you can't rule out Newgarden. You can't rule out Malukas. Those guys. And then that's the beauty of IndyCar. We go into a weekend and you can say, hey, any one of these 10 people could win the race. Right.
And there are
maybe more.
An additional 5 spoilers that I'll toss up every single time.
Yeah.
I completely agree. This is going to be a good weekend, and I think it's a really great way to kick off. I love that this race comes with a lot of surprises because the Indy 500 is all about, on some level, embracing the chaos.
Right.
And I think it's so great to start it out with a road course that does the same.
Yeah, and that was another thing Graham talked about with the 500, because someone asked him, was there extra pressure? Do you feel like since your dad won, the 500, you should win one? And he said, look, there are hundreds of people who have driven the 500, and there are a handful of winners in the history of this race. You don't win the 500 as much as Indy picks the winner of the 500. The track picks it. So
I do hate to rag on my fellow journalists. That feels like a bit of a silly question, and that I can't imagine there being more pressure on winning the Indy 500 than there is on any driver anytime. Right. I mean, there's as much pressure on Pato O'Ward, on David Malukas, on Joseph Newgarden, on Alex Palou, on Scott Dixon, on Will Power.
Maybe he didn't say pressure, but disappointment that he hadn't won it yet, or was there an expectation? But yeah, and Graham, I think, was very thoughtful about his answers. And look, 2021, I had it in my hands, and it, slipped away because of
the track rips it away from you sometimes. The race rips it away.
Right. So, he's just like, I'm going to keep driving like I'm ready to go out and win this race. But that having been said, he said, we're not looking past this weekend. This is a big race. There are a lot of points available in this race, and if he's trying to solidify himself in the top 10, a good result here can do that for him.
Definitely it can. Yeah, this is exactly what I said at the top of the podcast. Do not sleep on the Sonsio Grand Prix. Just because we are thinking about qualifiers, thinking about the 500, does not mean this race doesn't deserve your full attention. So glad they're doing it a night race as well. Kind of gives us a little bit more opportunity to highlight it.
Yep. It'll just mean a long late night drive home for me after the race. So I
say night as an East Coast time person who goes to bed at 9 p.m. By the way, it's 4:30. It's not night.
No, it's an afternoon. It's a late afternoon race. It'll get over at about 6 o'clock, right? And then after the press conferences and everything, and I get to load up my car, I'll probably head north about 8 o'clock. So it's going to be a long night for me, but it's going to be totally worth it because, being in Indianapolis, for the weekend, being able to see the races, talk to the drivers, get some more firsthand content for us, I think is going to be great. Um, Talk a little bit about Indianapolis, though, for people who may not know the city and why you would come to the Sonsio Grand Prix instead of the 500,
Yeah,
right?
so I'm a new Indiana resident. I moved here about 9 months ago. I've really been enjoying Bloomington on a regular basis, but I've been up to Indy a number of times. And I have really fond feelings about the city and what I've explored thus far. And I think that, uh, look, I'm a racing fan. I'm going to go to the 500. I think if you're choosing between the two and you are a person who is less interested in being at the greatest spectacle in racing and more interested in crafting a weekend, I think you can do really well at the Sonsio Grand Prix, and I maybe recommend you do it. Um, Things in Indy get really Indy is a big city with a lot of culture, but not the heavy price tag that comes with a lot of the large cities in the country. Doesn't matter because you've still got, as far as I'm concerned, the best steakhouse in the world with St. Elmo's. That $23 shrimp cocktail is not a waste of your money, I guarantee you. There are a couple of really high-end hotels that I'll stay at any time. I would say the bed at the JW Marriott's one of the most comfortable I've ever slept in. If you want to do a nice luxury city weekend that includes a race, Sonsio Grand Prix is a great time to do it. Everything in Indy is affordably priced. It's more or less a normal weekend there. But once you get to the 500,
Yeah.
you're looking at $800 a night for an airport hotel. You can't get a reservation a month and a half out at any restaurant. If it's a great city to explore. There's a lot of art and culture. Obviously, if you're here for the race, you don't really have time for a lot of other events, but there's always different music going on. If I
Yep.
had not been fully exhausted after my half marathon, I would have gone to see David Byrne that night.
Oh, wow.
That was the plan for what we were going to do, and I was so tired that I said no, which I can't believe. But there's always something great in Indy to do, um, and it's a really lovely downtown city experience at about a third of the price of something like New York. So
Sure.
Sonsio weekend is a great time to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like you said, if you want the spectacle of the 500, come
Yeah.
bring a very, very fat wallet for that weekend.
Yes.
Right. But
If you
if
plan
you,
to stay downtown in Indy, you can maybe get an airport hotel for something sort of affordable, but we're still talking in the multiple $100s a night.
yeah.
If you're staying downtown and you're planning on eating your meals out and not just making sandwiches in the hotel, man, you for a weekend, you better bring like $2,500.
Yeah.
I would guess somewhere in that range.
Yeah. Make sure you got your some headroom on your platinum card and make a big
Credit card
weekend of it.
points, baby.
It's great. And the Indy 500 is spectacular. And we'll talk about it next, in a couple of weeks when we get to that. But if you want to experience IndyCar racing
Mhm.
and you want to be able to get around Indianapolis and see some things, the Sonsio weekend is great. Also because the race is on Saturday. So you can
Mhm.
stay Saturday night and have the whole day Sunday to explore the city.
And because the 500 Festival is happening, because there are all of these events based around the Indy 500 that bring drivers in, that bring the city in, you're still going to get a lot of the vibe when you're walking around.
Yeah.
Huge IndyCar advertisements everywhere. Like I said, Connor Daly was just hanging out at the start finish waving. There are there are events every weekend for the 500 Festival. You can find something that connects you to the big race, even weeks before.
Sure. And you could go to the IMS museum, which is a great visit in itself.
God, do I recommend it. I had the best time. I did a quick trip up there a few weeks ago just with a buddy who was from out of town. And wow, did we have so much fun. There's
Yeah.
there's so much to see there.
So don't sleep on the Sonsio Grand Prix for the race or for a trip to Indy. If
Mm-mm.
you can't make it this year, put it on the calendar for next year. And that's a great thing about the IndyCar circuit is it does go to so many interesting places and places that maybe aren't mainstream, like Barber. How many people, how many events is Birmingham, Alabama a destination for?
Yeah.
Well, great. Let's go, go to Barber and explore Birmingham, right?
And I know when we're talking about American sports, Indianapolis comes up a lot because Lucas Oil is a good place to do tournaments and that kind of stuff. It does but feel like kind of a convention city. But that's exactly the point of why May and the Indy 500 are so special, because that's Indianapolis's identity. This is when you really get to explore that city when they're being their truest self.
Right.
It's a really fun time to be there. I'm so thrilled to live so close.
Great. Well, we're going to have fun together for qualifying in the 500. But this weekend, you'll be watching the Fox broadcast. I'll be at the track picking up some firsthand experiences, and we'll be able to report on all of that. So after qualifying on Friday, we'll do our recap on that and play our little predictions game. And then we will record the post-race podcast on Sunday morning, because I'm not going to sit around for another hour after the race and record before I hit the road home. So
my hope is any followers so devoted to be upset that the post doesn't go up that night will care about Harvey enough to allow him to drive safely home. We'll record Sunday morning. We're looking forward to talking about the race with a little space between it. It'll be interesting and different. As always, you guys, if you're interested in our content, please click the follow button. Follow us on any social media, either Rides and Drives Team Radio or Harvey_drives for him, Fast Car Kaz for me. Outside of that, you guys have the greatest time watching the action on track this weekend. We've closed out the last 4 podcasts by saying this, but now it's true. It is May.
Yep. So let's enjoy the heart of the IndyCar season. For Rides and Drives Team Radio, I'm Harvey, she's Kaz, and we will see you all Friday evening.
Drive safe, everybody, all the way to Indy.